If you clicked on this video thinking that'd be another hateful rant about why COD and or FPS suck, then I regret to inform you that you've been misled. Instead, this is a simple analysis on the reasons why COD has held its place for so long, and what it will take for a game or series to finally succeed in. I'm a big fan of the series myself, and I have been for years, which is why I have a way more balanced opinion on it than merely detached disdain. Call of Duty is a lot of things, both a pioneer in its own right as much as it is a product of gaming before it. The question isn't really at all, when will COD die, but rather, what is the next step in first-person shooter evolution, that is. To this day, we're still yet to see a first-person shooter, or even any other type of game, finally get the one-up on the dreadnought of a shooter. It's my firm belief that the reason why Call of Duty has reigned supreme for so long is simply that no other series has successfully beaten it at its own game. The thing is, Call of Duty itself isn't anything particularly profound. Even its gameplay mechanics are something that is inspired from other games and improved upon. COD just did it better than anyone else for the most part. The two major FPS innovations it introduced were aiming down sights and sprinting, as before all FPS were zooming in and holding down a button to dash, and features which people tend to whine about, such as 2 weapon switching and regenerative health, were actually introduced by Halo Combat Evolved several years before COD became big. So what then grants COD so much staying power, if not solely the gameplay? Quite simply, it's a cultural phenomenon, just like the previous FPS before it. Let's not forget that in fact Halo was the reigning champion of FPS before COD became big, and before that it was Counter-Strike. Each of these games enjoyed an era of their own, each introducing a new aspect to the gaming culture. Counter-Strike did wonders for the competitive community, which at the time was saturated by Quake and Unreal Tournament, or some still preferring to play Doom. Halo popularized online console gaming, with many logging in hours of Halo 2, and Halo 3 generating hours of YouTube content and funny montages. All COD really did was step into the shoes of a genre already on its way to becoming mainstream, hence why I said COD is a product of gaming before it. Call of Duty's 3 major strong points are the cornerstones of what made it so big this generation: its sales, its popularity, and its accessibility. Until a game can beat all 3 of these things, beat it at its own game, all it will succeed in doing is being yet another COD killer that was. If we look at the stats or numbers, then of course certain games will win in one of these categories. GTA 5 this year achieved $800 million in just one day, smashing all of COD's previous sale records, and it's undeniable that GTA as a series is more popular than COD since it's been around longer. However, in terms of the online portion, it's been less than stellar. One could argue that Battlefield 3 and 4 won over a ton of FPS fans, and indeed, those games at their best are fun experiences. But a lack of modes, options, and pick-up-and-play capabilities of Battlefield 3 held that back. And Battlefield 4's abysmal launch and still consistent bugs prevent that from even being played. Even without all that, people who compare COD to Battlefield forget that BF is a different beast entirely, with its own set of problems and own way of playing. The point is ultimately that in terms of accessibility, some games just aren't there yet, and the games that are might lack in the other 2 categories. Evolving a genre, or even the games industry as a whole, is going to take a lot more than popularity contests and people wanting something new. People love to go on and on about all the problems that COD has somehow caused for the games industry, as if it's responsible for all of the problems in gaming today. Yet the simple truth is that overpriced limited editions, annualized releases with little innovation, and repetitive gameplay are all issues that existed before COD was ever a main thing, and they probably always will exist. I've already mentioned how COD in particular isn't profound, and as fantastic as its campaigns and stories are, no matter how deep or intricate, like Black Ops 2 for example, they are just military shooters in the end. What matters isn't what COD is, because at the end of the day you can just choose to dislike it, hate it, and not play it. What matters is what COD's done for gaming as a whole. It raised the bar not only for FPS but for games in general. It created a level of cinematic real-time events that we'd never seen before. It added XP progression and customization to multiplayer, and it generated enough sales, popularity, and accessible experiences to make gaming more than just a dude bro experience. By the time Black Ops was out, COD was on everyone's minds, men, women, young and old. It was definitely here to stay. It was a social experience, the kind you'd play over at a friend's house like you'd play Mario Kart 64 back in the day. It was what allowed you to stay up for hours at night, talking to your friends over the headset about your favorite movies. What made COD relevant was more than just a robust multiplayer and cinematic single player. It was the unstoppable community experience. But it's also perhaps why COD is on its way out. Each genre has had its own revolutions from time to time. Burnout 3 Takedown added car takedowns and detailed destruction to racing games, something which is stuck to this day. Devil May Cry on PS2 created an extensive combo system and responsive control scheme, just as God of War years later added visceral combat and exciting execution. Gears of War gave us intense third-person action centered around taking cover, as well as some gruesome executions and a solid co-op experience. The genre revolution comes in leaps and bounds over several years. It doesn't just happen overnight. Just as puzzle games are still using physics problems and portals in their games, inspired of course by Half-Life and Portal, FPS are still using what COD gave them. It's been a big benefit to FPS as a whole to incorporate mechanics such as aiming down sights and sprinting, and it's allowed them to have good core mechanics, good core gameplay, and then focus on making a dynamic experience. The Crysis series is explosive and tactical, with beautiful graphics and fun set pieces, especially in 2 and 3. Features it might not have had if COD hadn't popularized them. Halo also learned from COD, adding XP progression to both Halo Reach and Halo 4's multiplayers, and finally adding default sprint in 4. Of course not all games utilize COD's example the right way, and simply copying COD doesn't mean your game will be better. It takes some good game design to make a good game, and that's why Crysis, Killzone, and Halo have all done so well, but haven't necessarily overtaken COD. However, the things that might have made COD relevant are the things that all games are beginning to have. It's hard to find a multiplayer without XP progression, or a single player that isn't cinematic, or even just any generic FPS that doesn't have aiming down sights and so on. FPS have learned a bit from COD and what it's done, and they will continue to evolve with or without the help of it. As much as many may hate this series now, COD served its purpose and did for FPS what Gears of War did for third-person shooters and what DMC did for the hack-and-slash games. Even COD Ghost, which received heavily mixed opinion, is still a game that hundreds of thousands of people play. It's important to note that no game ever really dies if it's popular. Like, Counter-Strike is still played by many and holds a firm place in the competitive scene, especially thanks to the newest update, Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Halo still holds a major fan base, and Halo 4 received critical acclaim and positive feedback. So perhaps what made COD the top dog is no longer unique to just that series, and sure, not everyone cares enough about it anymore. However, the series won't just die off and never be played again. Falling from the top spot means that it will just be in the same place as most other games, which is still a good place to be. I mean, you may have some people making jokes like it was a one-hit wonder, now living out its days in shame, but in the end, it's just another video game series. Now, many believe that Titanfall will be the next big FPS to revolutionize the genre, but I actually have my concerns about that game, even though I am excited for it. The glaring issue is it not being on either PS3 or PS4, which might hinder its overall outreach in the first place. The concepts seem exciting and fun, but I'd be lying if I said that it wouldn't be overwhelming for new players months down the line when so much is going on in the mechs, with mechs and so on. And I also foresee a serious balancing issue with how the human characters can wall run and reset their double jump by wall running again, something which I honestly think is a design oversight. However, in that game's credit, not even COD was perfect at the start. Call of Duty 4, for all its praise and at times overrated acclaim, was a game with major balancing issues, maps that were skewed to one team, and seriously unforgiving experiences for new players. It wasn't until Modern Warfare 2 that COD really kicked off and brought in a large fan base, so maybe Titanfall would knock it out of the park on the first try. Ultimately, what I'm saying is this. Call of Duty did this generation of gaming a big favor, even if no one would thank it for it. It played its part, and it might soon be performing its swan song as it bows off the stage. FPS as a whole have gained a lot from it, and with new mechanics and features added to their games to boost the gameplay authenticity, we might soon indeed see a new revolution. Some genres of games still haven't evolved much, and are still chasing the tails of games of the past, and others are padding their games with unnecessary features in the name of innovation. So it's more of a systemic problem than an FPS-specific one. So whether or not Titanfall or any other FPS to come manages to revolutionize the genre or gaming, I think that we're pretty close. Revolution is on the horizon of the next gen.